process what we just watched with the Varanon trial. Wasn't that just freaking, oh, I'm playing, there we go. Wasn't that just freaking amazing? Anyways, we are here now with Corey Lansdell from Third Age Art, and I'm not going to do much of an introduction. I'm going to be here in the background asking him your questions from YouTube, if you guys have any, while he's working. So yeah, Corey, why don't you just give us a bit of an introduction about yourself and what you do?
Sounds great. So my name is Corey Lansdell. I have a couple of Instagram channels, but a majority of my artwork for Wheel of Time fan art I've been putting up on a channel called Third Age Art. And my intention there is to kind of house all of my Wheel of Time and Stormlight Archives fan art, as well as Lord of the Rings stuff on that Instagram feed. So I've been putting most of my kind of slowly transitioning from my at Corey Lansdell on Instagram to over there. So today I'm working on a piece here, and I'm hoping that you guys are already recognizing who the model or the actor is. I kind of was thinking about what I wanted to work on at the con here, and I started thinking about Chadwick Boseman and thinking about his performances and in the Marvel films, and then started thinking about who would he be if he was cast in Wheel of Time, and I kind of came down to the conclusion I think that he would have made a great Arthur Hawkwing, and so I'm working on a portrait here of Chadwick Boseman fan cast as Arthur Hawkwing. I worked last night, yesterday afternoon and last night on the pencil drawing, and this is a little 8x8 watercolor paper pad that I bought a few weeks ago. And so primarily I work digitally. You've probably all, well, some of you, it was interesting. I was in chat yesterday and some people hadn't seen my work, and that got me, I was like, oh, okay, some people are not familiar with my work. So I thought really quickly I could just show you a couple pieces here on my iPad. These are some pieces that I've done over the years here. Doing this Wheel of Time work. This is a commission that I did of Low Gain. Let's see here. You might have seen this one floating around. It's one of the kind of, I guess, more popular pieces that I've done of Josha Stradowski as Randall Thor. And all these pieces kind of precipitated from the desire to see the cast as their characters. Once the casting came out, this was the first piece that I did in this series of Moraine, and it just kind of started from there, and I've done quite a few pieces now, and I'm continuing to do more and more pieces. So today I'm not working digitally, I'm working analog, or with traditional medium, I guess you would say, and I've kind of got in my head now this, after doing this, or well, doing this drawing, and I worked on a piece that I finished recently too of Henry Cavill as an Ashaman. So this is the same kind of paper, and it's an acrylic piece. And I've kind of got into this thing now where I think I'm going to do a series of pieces like this. But so let's dive into it here. I've got my palette ready. Digital is convenient because I don't have to mix paints. I can just jump in and everything's right there for me. In this case, I've got my colors. I did a little bit of color testing, as you can see here earlier, just in a couple spots on the piece. And then I've got my digital mock-up here that I threw together using the photo that I found of him, and then sort of manipulating, I guess, the photo to get what I wanted for his attire. And for his sword, Justice, which is kind of a cool thing, cool aspect of his character. And I want to give a quick shout out because the sword design is not mine. It comes from Heron's Flight, or sorry, fableblades.com. The blade is called Heron's Flight. So if you want to check that out, it's their design for this specific sword. And I thought it was really good. So that's kind of what I'm using as an inspiration for that. I just want to make sure that I'm giving credit where credit is due there. All right, so let's go for it.
We do have a first question actually in already, Corey.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
This one's from Lumen. He asks, what got you into making art professionally?
Well, yeah, I guess I can give you a little bit of my background while I'm working here. I was always inspired to draw at a young age. My dad was an artist. He worked in oil paints for quite a bit when I was a young man, growing up and as a young kid. And so I was kind of around art from a young age. He did kind of like landscape paintings with his oil paints. And then growing up, my brother and I were uh, we would spend hours and hours and hours sitting at the kitchen table, just drawing and working on, inventing characters and making up stories and stuff like that. We got into role-playing games at a fairly young age. So I kind of used to play way back when Dungeons and Dragons first came out. I was one of those kids that played Dungeons and Dragons in the playground at recess inside the tires because we weren't allowed to. So we kind of hit it, our contraband D&D. Anyway, so I grew up kind of chasing my brother because he's older than me, about a year and 10 months older than I am. We were very close in age, but I always was just inspired by his capacities and ability to draw. It's kind of a more natural talent than me. And it just kind of motivated me, I guess, chasing him with my artwork. And so that got me going sort of at the start, like early on. That was kind of my early motivations. And then in high school, I took art and loved it. And then at the end of high school, I was trying to decide kind of what my life was going to be about. I also was really into theater, and I had put together an audition and was going to go audition for theater school, but my primary passion, I guess, creatively was lied in artwork. So I got my portfolio into the local college here in Edmonton, in Canada here, and then I went there for 2 years. I met my wife in college at Fine Art College, and she still creates art too. So it's kind of a fun thing that we get to share that passion together. And then after I graduated from art college, I realized that it's hard to make a living as an artist. So I worked at Home Depot for a number of years in the paint department, ironically, but my color mixing skills came into good use there, I guess. And then I realized that I needed to go back to school if I wanted to do something with a creative career. So I went and got a visual communication design degree from the University of Alberta, and kind of the rest is history. My day job is I run an illustration and animation studio in Edmonton with my business partner, and we're just a tiny studio, and we just kind of contract stuff out when we need help with our work. So that's kind of how I got into sort of quote unquote professional artwork. This stuff that I do is like, I love this. If I could do this kind of thing full time and make enough money at it, that's what I would do. But reality being as it is, that's not really the case. Not yet anyway, maybe one day. And then I've got a lot of side passions or endeavors, I guess, with creativity. So my business partner and I are working on a graphic novel right now that's been picked up by publishers. So that'll be coming out probably 2022, I want to say. I can't say much about it yet because it's not hasn't been sort of publicly promoted yet, but that's pretty awesome. So we're working on the writing for that. We're not doing the art for it. We're working with a very talented illustrator who's doing the art for it. But it's been a really, really wonderful process. And we've got a number of other pitches that we're putting together. The hope and goal is that we can sort of transition our revenue streams so we're not bound to I don't know, I guess the daily grind or the hamster wheel, whatever you want to call it, that sort of chasing contracts, finishing contracts, chase, finish, that kind of sort of cyclical process.
Yeah, it'd be great to actually do full time what you love to do.
Absolutely.
We do have I have a couple questions coming up here.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, this first one is from Damon. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. They ask whether you always draw first before painting.
When I work, it's interesting, right? So, I mean, here's my thoughts on it, is that I really believe that drawing is a fundamental skill that you kind of need to be able to paint well, because it's kind of like the foundations of seeing. I typically, I think it's, I don't, I've done both. So when I'm looking for something like this, where I'm trying to get a really solid likeness, I'll sometimes start with a drawing because it just takes out some of the heavy lifting of the paint work. But I've done paintings where I just throw down the paint and just go for it too. Um, it's just a bit of a different exercise. Something like that ends up being a little bit more of an organic process. And in this case, I'm sort of taking into account that I'm kind of creating in front of people here, right? So I want it to be, I wanted you guys to have something to look at before I got the composition and the art, like the likeness starting to come together. So there's a little bit of like, this is the fact that I did it, like this is a really finished drawing. I normally wouldn't go this far with my drawing for my own means, but for the purposes of this, I wanted to do something a little bit more robust and complete. And it'll make it should technically, hopefully, make my process of finishing this piece a little bit smoother.
Awesome. Yeah, it's always fascinating to hear the process behind each piece, because I find many artists have many different variations of how they go about creating something. So I love listening to the process and the steps. The next question we have here is again from Lumen. He asks if you could play any Wheel of Time character in a theoretical theater adaptation, who would you play?
That's a fun question. Wow. Um, okay. Well, I don't know if anybody has seen me. I've been fortunate to have the opportunity to be invited to the Dusty Wheel a couple times, and that's been really fun. And I know, like, if you've watched those, you'll notice that I like to talk about a couple characters, one being Padan Fane, and the other being Logain. And so I don't think I fit a Logain very well, just because of my appearance and stature. I don't think I would fit that, but I think I could do a pretty decent Padan Fane. I've got a good nose for it, maybe, and I can got a good, I could be pretty wiry and yeah, physically I think I could do it. I'm not sure if I could pull off all the nuances of his chaotic character, but I think that would be where I would lean. And I've always thought that if I had gone into theater or film, I kind of think I could have made a pretty good career out of being a villain, which is not, it's funny because that's not my disposition. I tend to like to want to really be everybody's friend and be nice to people. But I think there's something, I don't know, appealing about the idea of, I don't know, getting to play somebody who's a little bit off. And maybe that's why I like being a dungeon master. I run a game for some friends, and it's a really enjoyable process to be the antagonist in those sittings. So
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It engages almost a different part of your brain and your personality to flip that switch and become something you normally would never be.
totally.
Interesting. Okay. So we have another question here. This one is from Bambi. Bams. It's D&D related. So she asks, what class of character would you play in D&D?
Yeah, that's funny. So if I haven't really had a chance to play a lot. I am playing, actually, I should say I have been playing a campaign with my son and some teenage guys, which is really fun. I'm like 43 and I'm hanging out with these teenagers, but that's been pretty fun. And in that campaign, I have a monk, a halfling monk, but he is kind of multi-classing to cleric, which is like, if you noticed on Discord chat on Yellow Aja. And so if I was playing consistently, it would probably be primarily, I would probably look at like a cleric or something, a support character of some kind. I thought that maybe a bard that's focused on support talents would be really fun. And that sort of is interesting, right? Because I like being the DM because I get to, antagonize people. But if I had a protagonist that I was playing, I'd want to be somebody who's into support and healing. It's kind of the two sides of that coin, I guess.
Yeah, I've only played D&D myself a handful of times. I'm not super into it like a bunch of the people here that are watching, but it's fun to mix it up and play different characters and kind of like what I mentioned before, playing almost the opposite of who I think I am in real life at times just makes it a little bit more intriguing. I definitely understand your points about being a cleric as well. I do have one more question here for now. This one is specifically from DT, our trivia master and server, basically creator mastermind for this event. He is asking specifically about this piece. He says he never would have imagined you'd start with blue as kind of the base colors there. Can you explain how this plays into your process?
Yeah, sure. So, this comes down to a bit of a color theory thing. We often see, and it's funny, I had someone comment on a piece that I had posted a while ago. There was an Aiel in it, and the veil that the Aiel was wearing wasn't pure black. And they're like, well, that's not right. It's the veil's not black. But if you look at my shirt, for example, I'm wearing a black shirt, but this isn't black here, right? There's like different colors in there. And out beside here, you can't see, but there's an outside window, a window to the outside, and the sun is shining towards that direction, and so the light coming at me is blue mostly because the sky is there and there's green trees, and so that kind of casts a cool light this direction, which creates this sort of bluish hue in my shirt and on my face on this side. And then on this side I've got artificial light, which is kind of casting this warm light, right, which is more of like pinks and yellows and reds. And so when I have something like this where he's got dark hair, black hair, I wouldn't want it to feel black. I would want it to feel like it's picking up, like it's a dark value, but it's picking up, some coloring, because it just feels more natural to how our eyes see. So that's the reasoning for that. And so sometimes I'll start with, like, this is quite a vibrant blue. And that's sort of just, I'm not going to say that I'm like, well, this hue specifically is because of blah, I don't know. I just throwing some colors down. This stage of the process of a painting is it's called blocking. And so I'm just blocking in the colors and not doing a very efficient job of it because I'm talking and stuff. But typically this would be like done super fast. And the idea is just to get the bulk of the values and chroma starting to come together. Sorry, I bumped the camera there. Try to stabilize that a bit. So I hope that answers the question. And you can't see my reference, but in my reference image, I've got some coloring on this side of his face that I've added, which will change the lighting as well. It's going to be more of like a purplish hue coming across. And then I've got sort of these purples going on in his tabard. And the reason I did that is kind of just a nod to his involvement in the Marvel films. And you can probably see that his like tabard, the top of it here is maybe slightly inspired by his Black Panther costume with the necklace that he wears. I just thought that might be kind of a neat sort of nod to some of the work that he did in reality. So
yeah, I mean, now that you point it out, it's so subtle that it looks like it should be like that's what Arthur looks like to me, right? But now that you point out the nods that you're doing and the little references, that's quite genius. Um, Thank you
Thanks.
for describing that. Yeah, no, everyone's like, man, I never would have thought of colors that way. We do have one more question here that I'll pop up.
Sure.
This one's from Christian. When you are reading from something that's not Wheel of Time, do you doodle characters or scenes in the margins, the notebook of that book?
Interesting. I mean, no, mostly because I consume most of my fictional books through audio, and so that I loved I was like, man, I was emotional listening to Michael Kramer and Kate Redding do their reading and stuff today. And like that, so that's the primary way that I've consumed the Wheel of Time books, and it's the primary way I consume any sort of book. I do a lot of driving. We live out in the country, and my office is, I have a studio in the city in Edmonton, which is about 45 minutes from my house. And so I get a lot of time behind the wheel of my car where I'm just idle. And so it works really well for me to do audiobooks. So yeah, I can't drive and draw, but I will say, don't drive and draw. There's your public service announcement for the day. Should probably be don't draw and drive, because it's more close to the actual. Anyways, I'm sorry, that probably was a really bad joke. Anyway, what was I trying to say? My mind is very, I do vividly see stuff in my head when I'm listening to books, but I don't get a chance to like just sit and draw, doodle while I'm listening. So I guess the answer is no. That was a long way to get to no, I don't.
Fair enough. That's understandable. I guess this one's from me personally. Is there any scene that you've read, not Wheel of Time related, that you're just like itching to get down on paper or on your pad or draw or paint or whatever?
I have to think about that one. I mean, the thing is, there's a lot of scenes from the Wheel of Time. Like it's hard for me to answer non-Wheel of Time, because I guess I've been really heavily consuming that lately.
Well, maybe let's keep it to Wheel of Time then. If you have like a scene or two in particular from Watt, then absolutely share.
Yeah. I mean, like, so this last year I did a really complex, it was like the hardest painting I've done, I think. It was a drawing of Darrad and his pikemen outside of Carrion during Fires of Heaven. Think of it? Yeah, Fires of Heaven. And Matt is there too. So it's like a battle scene with a shadow. Super like crazy, lots of figure work. And it was like kind of pushed me out it did push me way outside of my capacity, but I felt like I grew through the process. But I would love to do more like elaborate battle scenes like that. Tarwin's Gap would be one from Eye of the World. I think that would be like amazing to try to capture that. I'd really like to take, I mean, it's tough. So I don't know if you're familiar. Are you familiar with Gregory Manchess?
I am not, but there might be some people watching who are.
Okay. Well, he did, I think it was he did a large, I'm just trying to remember if it was for the ebook, the digital book, but he did a large scene of Demise Wells. And it's just like incredible. I mean, I'd love to take a stab at that. I just don't, it's like sometimes, when you're in work in a certain medium and somebody does something and you're like, well, that's it. I mean, that's done. Nobody needs to do that ever again. It's kind of like that. I feel like he's such a master with what he does that it's like, oh, but maybe someday when I feel more confident, I might take on something like that. Would be really, really challenging, but rewarding. Trying to think. I do really want to at some point I have a list. I can't bring it up right now, but I have a list of like scenes that I've kind of written down from Wheel of Time where I'm like, oh, I want to do that. I want to do that. One for sure would be when Egwene is defending the tower against the Shan-Chan. It's in one of the, which book is it? It's in one of the later books. I'm sure chat will tell me. You guys can tell me which book that's in. And she's got the I don't remember the name of the rod, but she's got that white rod in her hand and she's standing in the window blasting things from the.
Yeah. Yeah, at the Battle of the Tower. I envision that perfectly in my head also, and she's protecting the novices behind her that she's gathered along the way.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, it's sick. It's
yes.
like, oh man. Yeah, super intense. And just like such a awesome epic hero moment for her. So I'd love to depict that. I also would love to depict this sounds really strange because it's such a static moment in a way, physically, I guess, but it's like when Rand is in like the last battle. And I just have that image of him holding his hand up against, in front of the darkness of the boar there. And just like, oh yeah, I'd like to try something with that at some point too.
Yeah, that sounds really, I just picture like this big canvas, almost European style on the wall, 10 feet by 20 feet,
yeah.
kind of epic scenery.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
I have
awesome.
another question here for you from Rob. This one's kind of a two-parter. I'll kind of tie it together because it's technology related. He first asks, how is your phone mounted right now to show the art filming? And then he also just bought a new iPad because he's been inspired by yourself and Josh Stolars, I believe is the last name. Have you done any video tutorials for Procreate?
Cool. So my camera right now, all it is I've got a tripod. And then there's like a little, I wish I could just show you, but there's like a little clamp thing that you can screw onto the tripod that holds your phone. It just grips onto the phone like sideways, like little fingers. And then it just holds it there. In fact, I'll try not to break everything, but if I can just turn this gently, you can see it right there. So it's right here. So I've got my tripod and it's a really weird setup because I'm trying to get it over top of this stuff. So it's taped to, it's ridiculous. It's taped to my power bar for my MacBook Pro, which gives it weight on that end. And then it's just precariously balancing. It's not ideal. I'm sure there's like specific systems you can get, but that's how I do this. Sorry, what was the second part of, the second part was in relationship to tutorials. So I haven't done any tutorials specifically in regards to Procreate. It's something that I've wanted to do, sort of just create some little how-tos, I guess. I've done I shouldn't say that. I guess I've done a little bit. Gosh, I can't remember. If you go to my YouTube channel, you can see all my videos are there, and I believe that I've got a couple where I sort of talk about Procreate a little bit. There's a couple videos where I'm working like this, but I'm working in Procreate, so you can kind of watch that and see. You can just kind of observe, I guess, how I'm doing stuff. But I haven't done any specific feature tutorials or, explaining the functions specifically of Procreate.
Yeah, I think we were going to chuck this in the YouTube chat as well, but for everybody who's watching and listening right now, we do have all of Corey's information in our special guest links channel in the Discord server. So if you click that and just scroll up, you'll find Corey Lansdell with Third Age Art and his YouTube, his Patreon, his socials, everything should be on there. If something is missing, just shoot me a message or chuck it in the YouTube chat and we can find some more information for you, but you should be able to find it all pretty quickly there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Kelsey. Yeah, that's, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, no problem. And if you have anything, I'm not sure if you looked it over when you popped into the Discord, but if you have anything like your website you want to plug or any other projects that you want people to go look at, just feel free to talk about those.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's, like I said, the one thing I would super plug right now is my graphic novel, but I can't really plug it that much yet. I can't even reveal sort of which publisher we're working with at this point, but that's going
Oh
to be
shoot, I
exciting.
guess that'd be too much spoilers for this spoiler weekend.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's NDA stuff.
Yeah.
So, um, but yeah, I mean, I try to stay active on the primary place where I kind of post stuff would be Instagram is kind of where I try to kind of focus on. But I do post stuff to my Twitter at times, and all my video stuff, of course, goes to my YouTube channel. Um, but it's a constant struggle. I mean, as all of you content creators know, just kind of balancing stuff. There's times where it's like I just want to make stuff, but you gotta try to be involved in the marketing side of communication side of things too.
Yeah, totally. I'm excited for your graphic novel whenever it is allowed to be talked about.
Yeah, I'll definitely be posting information about it. They're working on some promotional art and stuff, so it should be fairly soon that we can start to communicate more about it,
Nice.
which will be awesome.
Awesome. Yeah. We do have another recent question in. This one's from Christian. He asks, what is the difference between drawing characters versus architecture for you? He asks because one of the Watt cover conversations is that Sweet is stronger on character or architecture. Sorry, not character. But yeah, what is the difference between drawing characters versus architecture for you?
Architecture is extremely difficult. You'll if you look at my work, you'll notice I don't draw a lot of architecture. Uh, and that's a weakness that I have that I need to eventually kind of dive into. Um, it's so what I'll say, I guess, around that is that I find that because this is a part-time thing for me that's largely a hobby. I tend to just gravitate to what I want to draw, like what would be fun for me rather than what is a challenge, which sounds terrible. But for the most part, I just try to find do the kind of work that brings me a lot of joy because it's time consuming. It takes away from my family time, right? And I want it to be an enjoyable endeavor for me. I would like to do more architecture and learn that more, but I mean, perspective has always been a challenge for me. It's something that I've always kind of been challenged by. Um, it's actually one of the reasons why I never really got into drawing comic books because it's just too overwhelming. The task of drawing all the environments and everything like that is like it's too much for me. So I kind of tend to avoid that. Most of my pieces are like open with open color backgrounds and stuff like that. That's one of the reasons why that battlefield piece was such a challenge for me because I was trying to depict the landscape as well as the content of the conflict. So yeah, it's a challenge. I don't know if that answers the question or if the question is more about content of book covers and stuff, but I can't really attest or answer like why they would focus on that more. But
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm not an artist myself. I've dabbled in sketching and I just look at other people for inspiration to get tattoos on. So
nice.
I imagine architecture versus people has its own formidable aspects to it. You have to be very precise with your lines and your shading and your angles and everything in your aspects. So I can
Yeah,
see that as
absolutely.
being daunting.
For sure. Yeah, it's something that I would have to kind of practice more. I did do a little bit of painting. I'm trying to think. I did a little bit of painting of, or I guess it was what was it? Yeah, I did a little like architectural painting not too long ago as a card for my wife for, I want to say her birthday. It was her birthday. Anyways, it was really fun, and it was just like a little kind of pastoral kind of countryside scene with some buildings in the background, kind of like a small little cityscape, Italian or something. I can't remember, but it was really fun. I think that if you're interested in that, I can recommend some people to look at. James Gurney is incredible. So if you look up James Gurney online, if you're not familiar with him, my gosh, that guy's a master, and he does a ton of like plein air painting of cityscapes and everything. Just tremendous, and you can learn a lot just by watching him. But he's got a lot of books and other content, educational content out there. So that would be, valuable for sure. It's actually a dream of mine to take a course from the likes of him and Greg Manchester someday, like go to a week-long workshop or something and just paint under the watchful eye of some of those masters would be incredible. And I'm sure I would learn a ton.
So would you say those two are kind of your main muses, almost your role models for art in a way, or do you have any other like key inspirational painters or artists that you pull from or take inspiration from?
Yeah, I mean, those two have been on my radar recently. It kind of fluctuates from time to time. I sort of dance around a little bit, but I do have a tremendous love for Greg Manchester's work right now. The thing that appeals to me about his work is I guess I'm at a stage right now where expediency is something that I value. And if you look at his work, he's just so good at communicating visually what the piece is about very economically. So his brushwork and the way that he lays down color and for a tone and everything, it just very quickly produces a result where you're like, oh, I know what that is, and it looks beautiful. And so that's what appeals to me about his work. James Gurney is just incredibly imaginative and also very accomplished in his approach and technical abilities. So I really, really respect what he does in that respect, and his work is also beautifully done. And if you look at his plein air stuff, it's a similar kind of thing where they just sort of know when to stop, and they know exactly just kind of how much to do to get across what needs to get across. And so that it's inspirational to me and kind of like magic. It's like watching magic, just really cool. John Foster is another inspiration to me. Very good. The thing I love about his work is his composition. So every piece that he does, it seems to have just like a very, very solid composition that you just kind of want to look at. It doesn't matter what the content is. It's just like, wow, that is a beautiful composition. The structure of everything, the way everything relates to each other, the tones, the positioning of stuff on the page is just always gorgeous and beautiful to look at. In terms of like classical painters or older painters, I really like John Singer Sargent, kind of for similar reasons. I do really love color field painting, which is maybe why I often do this kind of stuff in my backgrounds. And I've often thought if I ever do a quote unquote art exhibit, it would be along the lines of kind of color field work, probably in relationship to the Alberta sky. We get really beautiful skies out here. So I'd probably do a series of paintings that are kind of abstractions of clouds that sort of look like color field paintings.
Yeah, you had mentioned earlier just that it's kind of magical to watch somebody work on a piece, and we're getting a lot of comments like that in the YouTube right now while they're watching you work.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
Wow.
everyone's like, it's so soothing and it's relaxing and it's just fascinating to see the process. So,
well,
yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, everyone's just loving watching you go because they're like, wow, I look away for 2 minutes and he's already coloring the face. Like they're just, yeah, it's really interesting to watch.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, we do have another question here. Would you want to do Wheel of Time art full time, or would you prefer to do a balance of different projects?
I mean, I could see myself doing Wheel of Time stuff full time for a while. I wouldn't want it to become my whole creative journey. I think I would eventually have a hard time with that. And and that's like a reflection of my whole creative life. I often have like so many things on the go, um, which is why like I've been working on this graphic novel with my business partner. I've got 2 novels that I've been writing that are kind of sitting. I need to get back to those more at some point. Well, actually, I'm adapting one to a graphic novel right now, but um, I love painting. I love doing this kind of work. I'd love to do more fine artwork. I did a giant 100-foot wide mural this summer. It's 113 feet by 20 feet. And that was a very incredible experience, ridiculously challenging. I've never done anything like that before. And so it's kind of like diving into the deep end before you even really know how to swim a bit of an experience, but totally worthwhile. So yeah, I couldn't see myself being like, I only do this now. Although there's enough content in the Wheel of Time to make me work my whole life just around the Wheel of Time. I could literally spend my whole life doing Wheel of Time stuff. But I mean, like I said, like I love other stories. Like I really, really want to get into some more Stormlight Archive stuff. I've got a number of sort of sketches and ideas of things that I'd like to do in that story universe. I'd really love to do some Mistborn stuff at some point. And I want to kind of dive into the Lord of the Rings stuff more too. I've been trying to listen to the Silmarillion to kind of wrap my head around some of the stuff that I don't know about that story universe. But yeah, I mean, I guess the thing is I would say is doing this kind of work, fantasy based artwork would be awesome. My dream is kind of like a mix. So if I were to say this is what my dream career looks like, it would be a mix of doing this kind of stuff and writing, and then doing the odd like art exhibit, like doing my own paintings that are purely for like an aesthetic expression, and then having art shows with it. That would be my dream. And I'd have like a little studio here on my property out in the country here where I could just walk across there from my house and sit down and do my work. That would be, yeah, that'd be like total dream come true for sure. It's tough as a creative person. It's hard to I know I think some creative people, some people are like a neat mix of like very organized, structured person and creative. Like my wife, she's like super structured and organized, and she's one of those people where it's like, I'm going to do this, and then she just does it and does it well. Um, and I kind of tend to bounce around a lot between all of my different endeavors that I'm undertaking, which I think right now is okay. In this stage of my life, I got kids that I'm taking care of. I got my business and stuff too, and so to have this is like a creative outlet and a thing that I'm passionate about to just kind of pursue and be involved in events like this weekend has been awesome. I think it's like a nice outlet and a really healthy kind of part of my creative journey for now.
What's it like trying to balance all, like you said, there's family life, there's work life, there's creative outlet life, hobbies, and then maybe a social life in there possibly. How do
Yeah.
you find that you balance all of that?
I don't always do the best job of it, honestly. It's like, if I'm perfectly honest, my tendency is to get it's funny because like I'm a very social person. I really like people, and I like being around people. And if I'm not around people for a while, I start to go a little crazy. So funny though, because there's times where if I'm really bent on getting a creative endeavor done, I'll sort of get lost in it a bit, and to the detriment of important relationships and stuff, which is something that I have to be cognizant of and not kind of fall down that hole a little bit at times. So I have to be judicious in my time management, I guess. And my, having family really helps that, because I don't have a choice. Well, I do have a choice. I guess I could choose to completely ignore them and then everything would just fall apart. But that's not what I want to choose, right? So it's about motives, right? I want my family life and everything to succeed as well. So yeah, it's sort of like being, I guess, responsible to all those callings in life, I suppose. I don't know what the answer is necessarily. It's just prioritizing, I suppose. Like this weekend, my family's been super gracious with giving me like lots of time to just be involved in stuff, and sitting on Discord and listening to people do trivia and stuff, when I could be, contributing with house chores and all the different stuff that we have to do. So it's a little bit of like a give. My family's giving me time, and then it's just kind of communicating like, this is what's going on. And the blessing for me is that my wife understands, because she's a creative person too, and she has her own creative passions, and she's also a horseback riding instructor, and she's like super passionate about that, and that requires a lot of time, her discipline with just her own like skill development as a rider, and then her time with the horses, so that we just kind of like both, I think, understand that we both have these drives and motivations, I guess, that we are willing to stretch ourselves to help each other. So I'm fortunate that way. I think like with regards to business, that's like it's levels of priority, right? Family, business, and then these other things. So just trying to find that balance. I don't know. I don't think I'm answering the question very well.
No, because I don't know that. I mean, any entrepreneur will say that there is levels of priority, as you said. It's always finding that balance, I suppose, right?
Yeah.
And just working with how to make it best for everybody involved with what you have.
Totally, yeah. Mm-hmm. And it is an accountability piece too. And my wife will tell, like, we have a good relationship, so she'll tell me like, this is too much or whatever, right? So communication, I guess, is key in those respects too.
So with your wife being also a creative, I suppose, do you feel that you both kind of encourage your kids to also kind of learn art, take on art mediums, and kind of get into that line of work or hobby? Or do you feel like, hey, you know what, kids, try hockey, try fencing, try all these different things?
Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting, because like our kids are both kind of like bent that way. I see them both as being kind of creative, and they both sort of naturally pursue that a little bit. But I don't know, it's not like we've never been like, we've never been like, oh, you better be creative or whatever. It's not like kind of whatever they want to do is whatever they want to do, and we'll try to support them in whatever endeavors they kind of see themselves going into. But it is interesting, like, to see them kind of have like a bit of a natural bend towards that, and then just kind of see what they do with it. My daughter is really interested in veterinarian right now, being a vet. She's in grade 11, and that's like a whole other thing where it requires a whole other level of intelligence and hard work that I don't know, like I wouldn't be equipped for that. Maybe she'll succeed at it, but it's one of those things where I'm like, we've had conversations, and I'm like, that's awesome, that like we'll support you in that. If that's what you want to do, like, go for it, and we'll be beside you as you do that. But there is at times in the back of my head, I'm like, man, she's good. She should just go into creative stuff. She'd do really good at it. You know? And that maybe is my own natural response to my own comfort levels as a parent, right? Because it's like, I know I can kind of communicate with her around stuff like that. So I feel a little bit more equipped to coach her and potentially guide her. So it's maybe like a selfish response in that respect, potentially. If I'm self-reflecting here on live stream. So.
Oh, this is great. I appreciate you talking so in-depthly. Yeah, I think it's hard as a parent because you want to connect with your kids with things that you can relate to, and obviously art seems to be a family thing for you guys, which is great. How did your wife get into art? Did you guys meet through art, or have you guys worked on projects together? And I'm sorry, I'm going to add to that too.
Yeah.
Does she follow the Wheel of Time like you do? Has she read the series, and can you guys share like artworks and pieces and talk to each other about art pieces like this?
Yeah, so my wife, I met her at college. We met in art college, and so she's one of those people that I kind of shake my head at because she kind of just started painting when she was in grade. I think she said she was in high school, basically. And I'd been like pursuing creative stuff like my whole life before I went to college, and she just kind of was like, "I'm gonna try art in high school," and she's like, "Oh wow, I can paint." And I'm like, oh, you like must be nice. So she's got a lot of natural ability, but no, my wife and I, we share a lot of things, but fantasy fiction is not one of them, unfortunately. I've tried, you guys, I've tried. Don't nobody start yelling at me in chat. I've tried so hard. Like, oh, you should read this, it'll be great, check it out. And I just haven't been able to crack that nut yet. I'm really hopeful that I actually kind of really hope like the TV show is like the entry point for her. Like maybe she'll watch the show with me and we'll be like, oh, you know what, this is actually really cool, and then she'll start to read. But I'm not holding my breath, unfortunately. So yeah, we share like creative passion and a drive to create stuff, but it's not in the same genre of creative endeavors, unfortunately for me.
I guess each partnership has to have, each person has to have their own thing.
Yeah, oh no, for sure.
I might have missed this in your panel yesterday or earlier, but how did you find yourself getting into the Wheel of Time in the first place?
Yeah, it's kind of like I was listening to the Cosmere panel earlier today. I don't remember who it was. Somebody, or maybe a couple of them, said they read the Cosmere stuff first, and that was my case. Like I had a cousin who one year we were out on my dad and my uncles go on this like annual fishing trip, and I tried to get out there just to spend a day or whatever. And that year I happened to have a chance to go out for the weekend, and I was talking to my cousin, and he's a big reader. He reads a lot of different stuff. And to be honest, like I am not a big reader. I don't read a ton. And that's partly probably why I love our audiobooks, because reading has always been like super challenging for me. I actually kind of wonder, I've never been tested, but I sort of wonder if I'm like on a dyslexia spectrum or something, because I can sit and look at pages of a book and I just get lost, and then I'm like, I'll sit there. It takes me so long. It's just so long and painful. But anyways, he was telling me about I don't know why I get into these little tangents, but he was talking to me about the Wave Kings, because I was telling him about a story, one of the novels that I'm working on. I was kind of telling him about my idea for a novel, and he was like, wow, you know what, you'd probably like this. So I checked out the Wave Kings, and then I really loved that, and I found out that Brandon finished the Wheel of Time series, and I was like, you know what, actually it was it the Way of Kings, or yeah, I think it must have been Way of Kings that I listened to first, and then got into a bunch of Brandon's other work, like the Cosmere stuff. And then eventually I was like, you know what, I'm going to check out Wheel of Time. And that was that. And it was, I want to say that was like 9 years ago, probably, that I kind of started that journey. And listened to, like, I've consumed the Way of Kings a number of times, and or the Stormlight Archives, I should say, and the Wheel of Time. I'm in my third listen through now, and so that's you know, like, talking to some of the people here this weekend, I'm like, wow, that's why I'm like, I'm just I feel like I am like 20 reads behind some of the people here. You know, when we're doing trivia and stuff, I'm like, wow, you guys, I don't even know what character that is. One of the struggles that I have too is that because I've listened so much to the stories, when I read something like a trivia question with like names written down, I'm like, I don't even know who that is, because it's like not the way I hear it when I read it. It's not phonetically the same. I need Michael Kramer and Kate Redding to read the questions to me, and then I'll be good.
Oh, I hear that. I definitely understand your pain there. Hence why Seth created this podcast, right? For everybody who reads through it once, you keep wanting to go back to read through it again and again, and doesn't matter apparently how many times you do, there's going to be some new perspective or some new thought process or way of looking at things that keeps making it new for you, which is great.
Totally. Yeah. It's amazing for that. Like, I'm currently in Fires of Heaven right now on this kind of third read through, and there's stuff in this book that I'm just like, oh wow, it never really stuck out to me before. And then it was I think it was, is it in this book where the whole journey that Nynaeve is having with dealing with her fear and stuff is just I don't know why this time through, but it's just so compelling to me, and I'm like, oh yeah, really, like, really into it. I don't know, I'm just getting a lot out of that personal journey for her, so more than I did previously.
There's a couple people commenting in the YouTube as well, agreeing with you about the struggles of getting your significant other to read a series that you're so in love with.
Right?
So you're definitely not the only one.
I know I'm in good company. Yeah. It's comforting. We always have each other, you guys.
Oh, sorry. I'm just looking through some chats now, so I'll pop off for a second and then come back for another question or two.
No problem. So yeah, and I'll just kind of talk a little bit about where I'm at here with stuff. So so you can see here, like, I got to do something with his sword back here, but I'm pretty much almost at a stage right now where this would be what I would consider as like finished blocking. And now from here, it's a process of building up the forms and the details. And that's an interesting kind of process that kind of involves a little bit of like working and reworking. And so this is where I struggle a little bit. And this is where my appreciation for artists like Greg Manchess and James Gurney, this is why I appreciate what they do so much, because it'll take me a little while at my current skill level to break down the forms of his face with the right colors and the right tones to get it to a stage where I'm happy. Like this one took me, like I reworked stuff a couple times to get the colors and the form and stuff to where I wanted it to be. And so and that's just an aspect of sort of skill level where I'm not at the skill level that they're at, right? They've invested more time, and that's the thing I always like. If I talk to people about art, it's like I truly believe art is like any other skill that anybody can learn to do this kind of stuff. Some people have a more natural propensity towards it, or a more innate capacity, but we all have the capacity to learn to put colors down in a way that works for what you're trying to achieve. And so, oops, I'm wrecking my yellow. I'll go over that later. So over time, with more practice and more time invested, I will get better. I will get closer to sort of that ability where I could take this and in a matter of, a couple hours or whatever, come up with something that I'm happy with. But in reality, at this stage in my skill level, this is probably going to take me, it's probably going to be another 8 hours, I would say, of kind of working and reworking until I get this to a stage where I feel like I can be like, you know what, I'm done. I'm happy with this. And so I don't know if that's like a bit of insight, I guess, into kind of my process and where I'm at currently with my abilities and my skill level. And also just kind of I always want to encourage people, like, I think it's awesome that, people are wanting to look at stuff online about Procreate and trying to, fiddle with things and start to learn. It's really cool. It's funny because when we're kids, we all draw and paint or like create stuff, and we don't really think about it too much when we're little. We're always eager to color and draw and different stuff, and then at a certain stage in our life, at some point we tell ourselves I can't do that, or we just don't. We deprioritize creativity. It kind of goes by the wayside, and maybe it's a cultural piece a little bit of what we value as a culture. But there's something weird about how, eventually we all just kind of step away from it. But I really think I believe that everybody is made to create stuff, and we all have like an innate capacity to create and a drive to create. And it's something we should embrace. Because the world needs it. We need our creativity.
Do you find that this talent that you clearly have for doing portraits, do you find that it transfers over to other life forms like animals or like different kinds of reptiles or birds? Like Ogier has a good example here. Can you look out the window at birds and think, hey, I could do that? Or is it the same as landscapes? Or is like portraits like that's your band, that's your niche?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so I'm at a skill level now where if somebody was like, hey, I need you to paint me a bird, and it's this bird, and here's the picture, I can totally do that. No problem. It's like, yep, fine, I can do that. It's all, and even with like architecture stuff, like I could sit down, and if somebody was like, I really want a painting of this building and I need you to do it for me, I could be like, yep, okay, I can do that. It's just hard. It's just really hard. But I definitely can do it. Portraiture is something that I've really been focusing down on portraiture for a while now. I'm actually giving away, or no, I'm not giving it away. I lie. Am I giving it away? I don't know. I'm giving away an ebook on my website that's got some of my Wheel of Time art in it, portraiture and stuff. It's a little ebook, and it kind of talks a little bit about my process and shows a couple of my pieces. And you can download it. It's just essentially a PDF. So you can if you go to my Third Age Art Instagram, there's a link to do that, to download that if you're interested. All I ask to get it is to sign up to my e-newsletter. I'm slowly trying to, or I guess my email, what do you call it? I'm slowly trying to build up see, I'm not very good at this stuff. I'm learning. I'm slowly trying to build up my email list, partly because I want to, like, Instagram's kind of weird. Like all those social media things are kind of weird because I don't know who else there as like a fan. And then like if I can have an email thing, then I know for sure like those people are interested in what I'm doing. But anyways, yeah, I'm giving away a free book with some of my work. I do have one where I was like, I did 90, I think it was like 96 portrait studies in a 30-day period. And I kind of converted those into I put them into a little ebook and did a little like instructional section in there about the basics of portraiture, just like the very basic building blocks of like the structure of a face and stuff like that. And I intend on expanding on that eventually. So that's just to say that I've been studying portraiture for a while, and have always had I've always had an interest in the human figure and people. My ultimate like long-term sort of professional development goal would be to know like human anatomy so well that I could draw a person, a believable person without needing a photo, and I could like understand all the aspects of anatomy in terms of like muscular components and names and stuff like that. But I haven't. I kind of a couple of years ago I was like, that's like too much. Like I can't do that right now. I had to strip it down, and I decided to just focus down on portraiture primarily, because it's like I honestly feel that I could study portraiture for the rest of my life and not get to where I want to get to, because just there's so much to it. There's so much to the human face. So yeah, like I can draw. Like in my day-to-day career, I'm constantly having to draw and paint things and create stuff that I don't really know a lot about. It's just sort of the professional side of being a professional artist. You kind of have to be ready to work outside of your comfort zone and perform like on demand, essentially. And so, yeah, I can totally draw a bird or an animal or a horse or a house, a building, whatever. I do feel confident enough to do that stuff. But when I'm doing my own stuff, I'm not gonna gravitate towards that. I'm gonna do the stuff that I love, and I love the human figure, and I love portraiture. Is a lot of fun. It's enough of a challenge, and um, I feel like it's rewarding um, to put marks down and start to see a likeness of somebody is kind of exciting to me. It makes me happy.
I'm sure it's very satisfying to actually see something that you're working on move in a direction that you are hoping it goes. do you ever find you have a piece that you start, and as you work on it you get more and more frustrated or grumpy that it's not working out how you want?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Actually, that piece that I did that of Darred, it was a commission piece, and sometimes what happens to me is I get excited and I don't take the time, I don't do the proper steps at the beginning of a process to set myself up for success. So I just kind of dive in. I'm like, oh, this is so exciting. I'm going to do this. I'm going to just dive in and do it. And so I started with that piece. I was like, I had kind of an image in my head. So I just started sketching it. And it was sad. I got quite a ways into the composition. The sketching was done. I was starting to paint it. And I realized like, this isn't working. Like there's something about this is not working from a compositional perspective. I think the perspective was actually off. The gathering of troops was not correctly laid out in a believable way from a perspective, and that's because I just got overly excited and just kind of jumped in, and so I had to like start over again. That was kind of heartbreaking, and I did reach out. So I don't have like a formal mentorship set up with anybody right now. I'd like to find a mentor, honestly. But there is a good friend that I have who is an art director at one of the at a AAA game studio in in Edmonton, and he's like he's incredibly talented. Matt Rhodes is his name, Rhoades. I highly encourage you guys to go find his work. Yeah, that would be a contemporary of mine who I look at and just am so inspired. His work is quite different than mine. Typically, like he likes to work with more line and tone. He doesn't do a lot of painting, but man, he sure can paint. So I sent that piece to him, and I was like, "Help! I don't know what I'm doing. Help me!" And he kind of just sent me back like some guidance, and that was incredibly helpful. So I always try to. I know that I can reach out for help when I need it if things are going bad, and get some guidance. I've got people that I know. But I would like to, like I said, I would love to go take a class with Greg Manchess or somebody like that. I'm certain that they wouldn't take me on in a mentorship role because I'm sure they have a lot of people, a lot of other stuff going on. But to take some classes from people like that would be super cool. I'm kind of saving my Patreon dollars towards something like that, hopefully one day. And so that's my patrons are amazing, and I'm hoping that I can amass enough income to go take a big class like that one day.
I'm just watching your live stream. I have the computer in front of me chatting with you. So it's kind of like we're talking person to person for where I'm sitting. But then I also have on my phone the YouTube channel going. And it's so amazing to me that we only have 20 minutes left and you have done the amount of work that you've done. Just the detail, the shading, that's mind blowing to me. And it looks like for me, I'd be like, okay, this is done. This is as best as I'm ever going to get. Put it on the wall. But obviously you said there's like at least 8 more hours of work involved in this.
Yeah, I would say 5 to 8 hours. Yeah.
Oh, man. So when you come to finishing a piece, is there specific things that you're looking for to call it finished, or it's like you have a feeling about it?
It's a little bit of looking for stuff, but there is a little bit of a feeling component to it. So with these acrylic pieces, one of the awesome things about traditional medium is I can't undo stuff, and I can't like whittle and get really finagly with things. Like I can't zoom into his eye and then do like really ridiculous like detail there. So it forces me in a way to take a step back and be more what's the proper term, objective about it, and just be like, hey, is this looking like, is this communicating what I want it to communicate, I guess. So like I'm gonna just try and see if I can communicate this better. So like with this piece, for example, there was a stage with this one where I was really wrestling with some of the finer details in his face, like his wrinkly forehead and stuff, and these wrinkles in his neck. It's just hard to depict that stuff. It's hard to render that. And so I had to kind of like be like, you know what? This isn't as tightly rendered as I maybe would like it. But the medium, these, stubby brushes and this paint that dries quick dictates that I have to put down, like, I don't know if I can get it close here. I have to put down like a glob of paint and just let it be there and allow it to communicate that fold in his forehead, or like this chunk of hair. It's just a glob of white paint, but I gotta just blob it down and leave it. And I'm working on, one of the things that I'm personally working on is getting better at allowing the brush strokes to tell the information and just leave them. And so that's like, I don't know, I think for me, like to say, when I finished this piece, I took a break from it, and I came back and I was like, you know what? I'm done. I could go back in and work on some of the folds and detailing and stuff like that. Maybe put a little bit of better reflected light in here from the shininess of the pin and stuff like that. But I feel like this piece is communicating an attitude, you know, an energy, and I feel like the likeness is strong enough that I can walk away from it. And so I didn't go in and rework this big line here. Like, that is not something we would ever see in reality when we look at a person. But it communicates a fold and a shadow well enough that I can walk away from it. And that stroke is kind of appealing to me, just from a creative perspective or an artistic perspective. It's a nice kind of solid line. So I'm working on kind of accepting those things and being like, you know what, that's part of the piece. It's good. And I'll walk away from it. Digital work, because I've been so close to digital stuff, I kind of actually, and digital is so convenient because I can undo stuff and I can fix things. But I'm actually really excited about pushing myself back into the acrylics here for a while, for this foreseeable future here, because I kind of want to exercise my ability to let go and allow the medium to communicate. And so it's a little bit of like a training process, I guess, I'm going through now at this point in time, in regards to knowing when a piece is finished. So there's like layers to it, I guess. I don't know if I can articulate it any better than that, but
yeah, no, that does make absolute sense. You kind of get a couple pieces that you're looking for to make sure that it is correctly finished, but also like, hey, I could spend minutia amount of detail on these things going on, and it would just keep adding and adding, and you could probably do that forever on any piece, I'm sure.
Yes, ad nauseum.
Yeah, just a quick shout out to our YouTube followers and watchers and chatters right now. There is just under 15 minutes left. So as Ogier has put in the chat, if you do have any last minute kind of questions for Corey before we wrap up here in the next 15, please feel free to shoot them in the chat and we'll get those asked. There was one a little bit earlier that I thought of that I am now blanking on. Oh, sorry, it's right in front of me here. Seth was actually wondering, have you ever thought about selling the blocked out paintings? And have you seen Henry Cavill as Sherlock Holmes? I'm kind of lumping those two together.
Yeah, I haven't. I need to check out the role, that TV show.
Enola, yeah.
Yeah. I need to check it out. I also need to check out the comic book that it's based on. Or I don't know if the comic book came first. Anyways, there's a comic book about the character. But no, I haven't seen that yet. I want to. Oh, sorry, what was the first part of the question about Henry Cavill?
Oh, that's okay. I kind of threw out questions at random there.
Okay.
Have you ever thought about selling the blocked out paintings?
The blocked out paintings. So at this stage, you mean, and just be like, hey, I'm going to throw this up and try to sell it?
Yeah.
No, I haven't. No, I haven't. Yeah, no, you know what? I haven't really. So this is kind of new territory for me. I haven't sold traditional paintings very much. I've done like a handful of commissions over the years where somebody has like can you paint a picture of my husband, or can you paint a picture of, my deceased grandma, or different things like that. I've done little things like that over the years, but or my dogs. Pets are often a big one. But I haven't like tried to create my own works like this and then try to sell the originals. I never have, so it's new territory for me. I do intend on, so probably what I'm going to do is put these, I'll probably post, I'm going to do it. So I'll give you guys some insider knowledge. I'm going to be doing a series of paintings that depict actors from superhero films as Wheel of Time characters. That's what I'm kind of working on. And I'm going to use this format to do them, these little 8x8 sheets. And they're going to be finished to a similar degree as this piece. This would be the first in the series. And I will eventually post those to my Etsy store I'll get high quality scans done of them, and I will put them up as prints, and I will probably list the originals for sale as well. So that's to answer that question. It's not something I've done, but it is something that I do kind of want to try to do. I don't know. I honestly don't know how that'll go because I've never done it before, but this is kind of the journey that I'm on. This is like all of this Wheel of Time stuff that I've been doing, and I have my Etsy store and prints, and like there's one piece in the auction this weekend, and that's new to me in the last kind of probably just over a year that I've been selling my fan artwork. It's not something that I ever kind of thought I would actually do. And I just kind of was prompted by some friends who were like, you know what, everybody sells fan art. They're like, why not? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, that's kind of, I don't know, can I do that? And they're like, everybody sells fan art, do it, like try it. And I'm like, okay, I'll try. And so that's what I've been kind of doing, and it's been a really rewarding experience. And then getting to do some commissions around Wheel of Time for people has been tremendously fun. You know, like pieces where couples are, you know, I've done a couple couples portraits where it's an Aes Sedai and a warder, or an Aes Sedai and a Ashaman together, and or the last one I did, I think, was Rand and Egwene together, but like Amerlin, Egwene, and you know, Rand with still two hands, but handsome red jacket Rand. So anyway, like that's like really cool stuff for me. Just an enjoyable experience. But yeah, I'll get these. I'm gonna do a series, and then I'll see what I do intend on trying to list them for sale. We'll see what happens. The other piece is like I've never tried to sell my work at like a convention or anything, like a Comic-Con or anything like that. And I would like to try to do that once the world is back to some kind of capacity where we can do that sort of stuff in person. I'd like to give that a shot and see. And I think maybe like I might try to sell some of, like, let's say I did this as a color study, took it off the easel, just set it aside, and then started the piece again with my color palette in place. Because a lot of artists will do that. They do like a color study where they essentially do a rough painting, and then they'll do the finished painting based off of their color study. I don't like to do that because I'm not sure I would have the fortitude to paint it twice. I just like to rework it until I'm happy with it. But if I did do that, I could maybe potentially sell the color studies as well as the finished piece, I guess. I don't know if you guys, my art, my mock-up is over here, so I keep looking over here and not right at you guys. So I hope that you're not like, what is he doing?
It's okay. It makes it feel like a conversation, like we're all sitting at the same table. Is there any other? I know you've listed like Lord of the Rings and the Cosmere and Wheel of Time. Are there any other series or characters that you really would like to start working on or want to one day work on?
I mean, I'd love to. I really want to do my own stuff. So I would love to do a series of paintings around the novel. One novel in particular it's a fantasy story, and I had intended initially to tell the story just in a series of like 12 paintings. And then I realized like that's ridiculous. That's not going to be enough information. So I started writing the novel, and it's kind of sitting. It's been sitting for a while. It's on hiatus right now because I've got just too many other things on the go. But eventually, I'd like to get back into the writing, and then also I'd love to do some some paintings around it to help communicate the world and the feel of everything. But apart from my own stuff, I think it would be really exciting to work on like Star Wars stuff or Star Trek. Would be kind of cool to explore some Star Trek stuff. Those were always like, I mean, everybody, most of us people my age are, Star Wars was part of our childhood, right? So there's a little bit of a nostalgia piece there. But I did spend a lot of time in watching Star Trek as a young man too, and in my older years here.
Have you tried doing space-related paintings before? Is it like a hard landscape to try and capture, or it's something that'll be totally new to you?
Yeah, it would be new to me. I haven't really worked on anything like that before, so it would be new. It'd be kind of a neat, it'd be a neat experience to try to endeavor, like, and boldly go where I've never gone before.
So for your personal work that you normally do for streaming, is this kind of a similar setup for how you would do it? Is just having a camera going and you talking to your people who are watching?
Yeah, I mean, this for sure. In my other live streams, this is what you would have seen. I've never had the dual screen thing going before, and I'm not sure. I'd have to do a little bit of research. I honestly don't know if I can do that straight into the YouTube live stream client, because that's where I do it, is just through my YouTube channel. Or if I would need to set something up through OBS or whatever. I'm sure there's probably people involved in stuff behind the scenes here that could give me some advice. But I typically I would just kind of look at the comment feed. But this has been really nice for me, having somebody relay the comments to me. So I really appreciate it. It has made it nice for me to be able to just kind of paint and chat. It's like, it feels like I'm just sitting here talking to you guys while we're working. So I like that.
Yeah, no problem. I hope it hasn't been too much of a delay or too stagnant for you. This is, again, one of my first experiences moderating for things, so I'm trying to keep it engaging, but also I'm very nervous about like interrupting you in the middle of something, and God forbid I make you like move your paintbrush the wrong way. Yes, I am terrified of that. So
oh, no worries. You can't. There's nothing that you could do that would make me wreck it that I wouldn't do myself. So
okay. So myself and Seth, and likely many others watching right now, are pet owners and pet lovers. Did you mention that you had pets of your own? And on that thread, have they ever destroyed a piece of yours and you're like, oh no?
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, because of our life out here in the country, we have quite a few animals. And with my wife being interested in, I mean, heavily involved in horseback riding. So we have at our property, we have 2 horses and a miniature horse, which is like kind of a half of a horse. And then we have a German Shepherd and a bunch of cats. We have 1 cat that kind of lives in and out of the house, and then a bunch of barn cats. We got 2 little goats, chickens. We got a lot of stuff going on here. But I'm trying to think if I've ever lost artwork to one of my pets. I grew up in like, I feel a little bit like Perrin sometimes. Like I actually really identify with him in some respects. I kind of grew up in a pack of dogs. My parents bred dogs when I was a kid, and so at any given time we would have like 4 or 5 adult dogs and a whole bunch of like puppies and stuff. It was crazy. I'd roll around on the ground and let them chew on my ears and all kinds of stuff. But I don't think, you know what? I think I've been pretty fortunate. I don't think I've ever lost artwork to an animal, to a pet. I'm trying to remember. Well, actually, there was a time in high school, my parents had a parrot for a while, an African gray parrot, and she ate part of the side of one of my art pieces. I remember that. She was on the kitchen table and she chewed on part of the part of the artwork, but didn't like outright destroy it. I've never lost like an entire piece to the ways of a pet before. I've spilled things on artwork before. That's bad.
So sabotage by your own hand only.
Yes, and I actually blew up a computer once because I spilled a giant mug of coffee onto my keyboard.
Oh dear.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, we have about 1 minute left here, and everybody
Awesome.
wants to just let you know that you could seriously move into doing audiobooks because your voice is, it's Bob Ross-esque. It's calming and soothing, and everyone's just like, oh, this is lovely.
Oh, well, I painted a happy little tree over here, and you can invent your own little world.
Well, in this last minute here, is there any last steps that you are going to do with this piece, or any kind of wrap up information you want to share with our listeners?
I mean, I'll leave this now since we're wrapping up. But yeah, I'm gonna just keep building the layers on this. I will take this. I kind of thought what would be nice if you're all interested at all. I'm gonna do live streams to finish this piece over at my YouTube channel, and my thought is I will probably do one a week. Actually, going forward, I think I'm gonna do that for all of these pieces. I think that'd be kind of a cool thing. So as I go through this series, I thought it might be neat to do them live on my YouTube channel. So I'm going to try to figure out all the technical bugs and aspects of that. And then you guys are all very welcome to come and join me over there while I go through that process. It'll probably be in little small, like 2-hour stints here and there. Other than that, if you're interested in owning one of my prints, please go to the auction. If you're in the auction, bid on it. That would be amazing to raise some money for the charitable organization. Would be awesome. And that's about it. I'm super grateful for the chance to share this with you and to spend this time with you. Thank you all for hanging out with me. It really means a lot.
Yeah, we really appreciate you spending a Saturday evening, doing your art in front of us. It's been really fantastic to watch and talk with you through your process. So we really appreciate it as well. Like Corey said, everybody go to especially the special guest links tab in the Discord, and you'll find his YouTube, his Patreon, his social links. Go check those out. Smash all those follow buttons. Hit the silent auction to grab that artwork. Yeah, just give this guy all the love and all the likes. Corey, thank you so much again. Really
My
appreciate
pleasure.
it. And we'll definitely stay in touch in months to come about more spoilers, events, and related content. So thank you.
That's tremendous. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
For everybody listening right now, we are going to be having our next events coming up in about a half hour or so. I believe the Discord trivia is still going on. But at 6 p.m., we have the Watt Spoilers live recording podcast happening. And then also at 6 p.m., the silent auction ends and the costume contest ends. So get your bids in now in this last half an hour and your costume contest voting in. Okay, that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much. See you all later.